Ori and the Will of the Wisp quickly became my most anticipated game of 2020. Yes, over all of these, after finally playing Ori and the Blind Forest last month. I adored my time with the Blind Forest. It is such a beautiful game with a truly heartfelt story and made me really interested in Metroidvanias and 2D platformers, which is a genre that isn't usually my go-to, and the game quickly became one of my favourite games of all time. So needless to say, I was pretty excited to jump into Will of the Wisps as soon as possible, and now that I've beaten the game, well, here we are. Here is my review for Ori and the Will of the Wisps. This is a spoiler-free review, but if you want to go into the game completely blind, I recommend stopping the video and playing the game for yourself because it is worth it. Guess I spoiled my own review, but whatever. Let me get this out of the way in the beginning. Yes, I recommend if you haven't played it already, go and play the Blind Forest before playing Will of the Wisps, because the game picks up right where the last one left off. Ori, Naru, and Gummo are welcoming a new member into our little family in Ku, Kuro's child, and she is adorable. While we see her begin to grow as the introduction plays, we also see that due to her damaged wing, despite her efforts, Ku cannot fly, and as the other birds begin to migrate, she must remain. Ori, wanting to help their new sibling, goes and gets Kuro's final gift, her feather, and with the help of Gummo, repairs Ku's wing so she can finally fly with the rest of the birds. Ori and Ku set off, but don't make it far before they hit a storm that ends up separating the two in a new land full of danger and hopelessness, and leaving Ori to find Ku before something else does. That is the story's setup. It evolves and progresses from here, but this is all I can really go into in terms of specifics before we get into spoiler territory. What I will say though is, the game does a really good job at building a connection between Ku and Ori very quickly. You feel a sadness when she is trying her hardest but just can't fly. Yet once she finally does, ends up being alone in a new, very grim land, and you can't help but feel it is your fault that we're there at all. The story does a great job at just making you care about these characters, both good and bad, again, with limited dialogue and ensuring the soundtrack and the game's visuals carry the intended emotions the game expects you to feel in those moments. Whilst we're on the game's visuals, this video isn't going to do the game justice. I didn't know how they could improve upon the visuals, but they did it. This game is absolutely breathtaking, but it's not just a beautiful game for the sake of being beautiful. Each color has a purpose. They brighten or dim the color palette depending on the emotion they want to convey in the environment or the scene. Whether that be happiness, sadness, danger, or safety, whatever it is, the game knows what it wants you to feel and then makes you feel it. It really is a work of art. Now, the gameplay here in Will of the Wisps is at its core largely the same as the Blind Forest, so I won't be going over the basics to this series here, and instead I'll be going over the changes and improvements to the gameplay formula. The biggest source of change in Will of the Wisps is its inspiration from Hollow Knight. I mean, maybe they weren't inspired by Hollow Knight, but the changes made to the game feel like they were. We have a vast amount of characters to talk to, side quests to complete, interchangeable upgrades to be found, bought or as a source of rewards. There are challenges to complete, and instead of just running away from big bad enemies, we do stand and fight much more here. These changes to the formula make for a much more engaging experience, especially when trying to complete the game 100%. You want to fully explore each location to find the vast amounts of collectibles, from money, health upgrades, energy upgrades, upgrade materials, power-ups, quest items, new abilities, combat challenges to test your fighting skills, speed trials to test your map knowledge. All of these keep you engaged and make you want to go back to locations after your first run through because you have a new ability to grab that pesky collectible that escaped you at first. One change that did take me by surprise was the game's challenge. This game can be brutal at times in a good way, especially if you tackle a location maybe at the wrong time, which happened to me with the spider fight. Whilst I felt the dark cave was challenge enough, this fight took me about an hour alone to beat, struggling to the very end due to my low health pool, dealing small amounts of damage and having minimal abilities, but it was enthralling. I needed to learn her attack patterns, when to attack and when to flee, and when I finally succeeded, it felt just as good as any other boss I've ever had. But the boss fights in general feel like that, and it was a great improvement rather than running from everything in the first game. The game lets you go and complete tasks in any order you want, and it is possible to do it like this, but be prepared for some good challenge if you enter an area maybe before you should. The gameplay overall just feels better here in Will of the Wisps, because despite on the surface being more of the same, it has so many improvements with the game's additions that it was a blast to play from start to finish. The game unfortunately is not without its problems that thankfully didn't impact my overall feeling about the game, but are noticeable and often enough to mention, and that is the game's stability. I played the game on my Xbox One X, yet experienced consistent frame drops, freezing, and a few crashes along my 14-hour playthrough. Again, not a huge deal, and the game's quality is so good otherwise it overshadows these issues, but especially in regards to the frame drops and freezing, it was happening a little too often for my liking, and I hope they do begin working on the game's stability to nullify this criticism. If you couldn't tell, I loved Ori and the Will of the Wisps. Whilst I loved the story and the emotions of the original game a little more, this game's story is no less incredible and is still utterly engaging, making you want to see how it all plays out. The visuals are some of the best I've ever seen, and the gameplay improvements make for a game that is better to play than the first, with its staggering amount of variety. The stability issues weren't enough to detract from this feeling I had when I finally finished the game after 14 hours. The feeling that this is a very real Game of the Year contender, and honestly, probably will be my Game of the Year. A little early, but you get the point. The game is incredible.